Aloha, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of Keeping It Real with Sheil. It is February 10th, a beautiful Thursday here on the island of Maui. And I am super excited because today I have got not just one amazing guest, I have two amazing guests that I am honestly humbled to even get to talk with and be in the same space. So without further ado, let me introduce my first guest, my friend Jonette Biebesheimer, and she is here with us from Oregon. And Jet, come on board. Oop, there we go.
Are we on?
We are.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. My name is Jonette Biebesheimer, and it is just with great honor tonight that I get to introduce really a pioneer in this field and my mentor. I can't believe this last 8 years. I am a biochemist, so his work is just near and dear to my heart. And on a personal note, before I do the accolades, I want you to know I went through cancer, and Dr. Prasad helped me guide, and he said, it's not your nutrition that's the issue, because I had I was taking his micronutrient and very good nutrition. It was the stress, and it was actually the lack of sleep. And so it's such an interesting story now coming around that I get to be able to share that, how much he means to me personally and to the masses. His work is just, he's a pioneer. Okay. So with that, Dr. Kedar Prasad graduated with his Ph.D. in radiation biology from University of Iowa, Iowa City in 1963. His postdoc was at the Brookhaven National Lab. He was the former director for the Center for Vitamins and Cancer Research at the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center, where he taught physicians and people that studied PhD in nutrition. He is a published author of over 25 textbooks, which I'm just doing a plug right now, Dr. Prasad. So this is one of the textbooks they teach at medical schools. Okay. I use it all the time. There's a whole chapter on diabetes in here. So if you want to know more than what we're talking about tonight, this is it. You can get it on Amazon, but I use it all the time. He has also over 260 peer-reviewed works. And there have been articles published in prestigious journals, many of them, but just Nature and Science, to just name a few. We'll also be sharing his latest reprint of his diabetes 2020 paper, which Sheila is going to post down here. For all of you want to know more about how micronutrients can really help you with your diabetes, Dr. Prasad's amazing work. He is a member of the Royal Academy of Medicine of London, which is quite an honor. He is the former president of the International Society of Nutrition and Cancer. And in my opinion, living today, there's no one that knows more about micronutrients and optimal health than Dr. Kedar Prasad. Welcome, Dr. Prasad.
Thank you, Jonette. I called her Jonette. When you called Jet, I could not figure out who's Jet. But yes, then the email is Jet, so I remember now.
You got it. So Dr. Prasad, when we look at your years of studying these micronutrients, on my notes, I wanted for people to understand your why. Why did you dedicate your work to a multi-micronutrient approach? For all the people on this call to learn more, what was your why?
Yeah, that's a good question. As you know, I was doing in the beginning when I joined University of Colorado Medical School, I was doing research on differentiation of nerve cells. And we discovered that a cancer of nerve cell, which is called neuroblastoma, you can convert by biochemical means, you can convert to a normal cell. And that's what I was famous for a long time. But then I decided to do, because in a cell culture model, once the cell from cancer to become normal-like, the nerve cell don't live. The mature nerve cell, you cannot grow in culture, they die. So I said, well, let me try. And at the same time, And Linus Pauling, as you know, who is a two Nobel laureate, discovered that vitamin C could be very useful in the treatment of cancer, high dose vitamin C. He was recommending 10 grams. And so, so I said, well, I will test on my system whether he does the same thing, because everybody was criticizing him that, oh, he's too old and he doesn't know what he's saying and so on. But I said, he has won 2 Nobel Prize, can't be that wrong. So I did experiment with vitamin C, and turned out, sure enough, it kills cancer cell without killing the normal cell. So then I said, that's the way I got attracted to nutrition and forgot about differentiation of nerve cell, for which I had millions of grants from NIH. But then I said, okay, how about vitamin E? What vitamin E does to my cell? Does it kill also like vitamin C? So I tried vitamin E acetate, which is at that time very commonly used vitamin E in a clinical study, in a basic science study. And when I tried vitamin E acetate on my cell culture, neuroblastoma cell, nobody died. So I said, that's I could have stopped right there. But then I said to my technician, who at that time was my wife, working with me, that I said, why don't you order all forms of vitamin E that are available commercially? And she went ahead and ordered 5 different forms. And I tested that among them, vitamin E succinate was the most effective in killing cancer cells. And then I said, oh, that's very interesting. And then I started investigating further. And then I found that, for example, in melanoma cell, they don't create death, but they induced differentiation, because melanoma cells are undifferentiated. If you induce differentiation, they stop growing. So I said, this is very, very interesting. Then I said, well, I will combine vitamin C and vitamin E with a chemotherapeutic agent, X-radiation, because I was working in radiology. So the X-ray machine was next door for experimental purpose. And I found that, sure enough, both vitamin E succinate and this neuroblastoma cells, vitamin C and vitamin E succinate, and vitamin C as well, enhanced the effect of chemotherapeutic agent as well as radiation therapeutic agents like X-ray on a cancer cell, but not on normal cell. So I said, that's very interesting. So I ran a whole bunch of controller study, and this was conclusive study, and we published in a cancer research and PNAS and so on. So that started the nutrition field for me. But then I was always interested in neural nerve cells. So I said, a postdoctoral fellow joined me, and he knew how to put genes in a cell, any cell you give him, he will put a new gene. And so I put the Alzheimer gene there. And then sure enough, once you put Alzheimer genes, the cell, when they differentiate, they all die. So I said, that's strange. Then I said, can I prevent that by micronutrient? I tried single micronutrient, it didn't work. But when I tried multiple micronutrient, it prevented the death of all differentiated neuroblastoma cells from dying, even though they were carrying the Alzheimer gene. And so this is the way I entered the field of micronutrient. And then I was teaching a course on nutrition and cancer to medical students, and I gave them some formulations. And he said, well, they said, I can't find out what formulation you are talking about in any store. I said, well, this is a new formulation. I think you may have to take individually. And then a week later, one student said, why don't you form a company to produce this product? So I said, look, I'm a poor professor. I can't do that. I don't have money. It's time, So finally, my sister funded a at that time we call it a scientific nutrition, and produced that product. And an editor of Boulder in Colorado, Canberra. She was the editor, and she had the same issue, Jeanette, that you had, breast cancer, and I helped her to recover. And so she wrote a big article about me, my picture, and everything else, in a 10 different, not only her newspaper, but she sent all over the country. And so overnight, my product became very successful. And so, but I didn't have time. I was working full time at the university. So my wife was complaining, you don't have any, why you did it? I said, well, I tried to, satisfy medical student request. But anyway, so that became the start of the company. And that company lasted for a long time. And then I said, that's a small company, I want a big company. So we created a Premier Micronutrient Corporation. But CEO was not very good. And as you know, Jeanette, that I generated $12.5 million. I mean, I ran about 1 year after forming the Premier Micronutrient Corporation in the hall of a Senate and the Congress to raise money to talk to the.
Can you tell how many times you had to present in the halls of Congress and Senate on the formulation of this product for everyone on the call to know before you got that money? How many times you have to present the multi-micronutrient formulation to get that money?
Yeah, and then he said that, well, Congressman said, yeah, but then you go and get a support from our military because that's the place we need it. So I turned out I gave a 17 lecture to different branch of military because, as you know, military scientists are very conservative.
Very conservative.
So at the end of the talk, he said, yeah, you have some scientific rationale, but we want to do a study. I said, I don't have money. He said, go ask the Congress. And that's the way he started it. And the whole procedure went. And as you know, we tested in a Marine Corps in training, in a veterans exposed to traumatic brain injury and so on and so forth. And that formula is now called Micro Daily. And so it has very strong, not only clinical support, but also we did a lot of basic science research in a tinnitus, hearing disorders, and also radiation protection study in collaboration with NASA. We did a study, and also in collaboration with the Armed Forces of Radiobiology Research Institute of the Army. So we did a lot of basic science study as well. Because you can't do radiation protection study in humans, so we have to do in animal. And in Russia, we did experiment on a rabbit as well as sheep. So it was all positive result. And then came in a picture, Engage Global. I guess Engage Global bought the rights of distribution from PMC. And that's where we started. Now, rest is history.
Okay, so I'm gonna flesh out a couple of things. 17 times you went and presented on your formulation, on a multi-micronutrient formulation to
Might work. Yeah.
Great. And then what was the total amount of funding that you got for this one multi-micronutrient formulation, both public and private?
$12.5 million.
$12.5 million.
And that money we shared with the laboratory of Department of Defense, because half of the work, like human study, they will do there in a Palm 29 in San Diego, and they will send us a sample. And in our lab here, we used to have a very good lab here in Novato, California, and so and we will assay markers of oxidative stress, inflammation, and things like that. So it was a joint study, but we were the PMC, and I was responsible for raising that money, convincing Congress that this is very important because our troops are suffering from oxidative stress due to production of free radicals and inflammation. And when they get wounded, they can recover faster. And we have a lot of scientific data behind that, and therefore they approved it. But they did not approve to our company. They approved on the project. And many applicants came, and we had to compete for that. And I had to write a 60-page application for each $1 million that we received. So it was a hard work, but I'm happy that we did it, and I'm happy that product is so good and is helping so many people.
Well, Dr. Prasad, I'm one of the people that it is helping, and my husband, and I'm grateful to you because I think it's been 2 months, or maybe, 2 months that I've been taking it, and I feel differently. I have a lot more energy. I have just when I take it, 20 minutes after I take it, I literally have a flush go through my whole body. So I'm saying thank you very much, and please keep going. And I know that a lot of people are excited to hear you talk about how this can affect diabetes and how we can.
Now I will talk to that point because there is, this longer story background, but the diabetic issue. As you know very well, that incidence of diabetes is increasing, not in the U.S. but all over the world. And it was statistics suggest that in 2012 there were only 20 million people living in the U.S. with diabetes, and in 2018 that number grew to 34 million. That's amazing. And so we have some guideline for prevention. For example, weight loss, don't smoke, good diet, do exercise, and have a positive outlook. This kind of is good, is a solid recommendation. Despite those recommendations, the incidence is increasing. So question is why? Well, one reason is because human behaviors are difficult to change. It took long time before smoking. Many people smoke. Large number of people, as a matter of fact, smoke. So human behavior are difficult to change. And if you change 100%, that may not be sufficient, even though you follow 100%. That may not be sufficient to reduce the risk factor that initiate and initiating the development of diabetes, as well as in the progression of the diabetes. And so the prevention strategy has not been useful. As far as the treatment aspect is concerned, as you know that there are people start with metformin and metformin.
Yes.
And this is the earliest drug, and this is very good in the beginning. But then they become resistant. They started giving some other medications. A whole bunch of medications are available, and they have some side effects. Despite all those medications, there has been report that about 450,000 people died of heart disease, among diabetic patients, and 300,000 people had a stroke, and about 150,000 people had a lower limb amputations. So these are dreadful events, and the cost of the diabetes in 2018 was $355 billion, both direct and indirect. $219 billion was paid by the Medicare, rest of them by insurance and the personal pocketbook cost. So the question is now how you can add up whatever the recommendation we are getting. We want to add up some new preventive and treatment strategy that can enhance the effectiveness of current guideline for prevention as well as current guideline for treatment. And we can do that, and so that the new strategy should be implemented where people have less resistance for taking it. You have to do that because it is difficult to change human behavior. And so we have to develop a product which have least resistance and no toxicity. So this was in our mind when I tried to figure out what to do in case of diabetes. And again, if you look the literature, science, or you talk to scientists, if you make a statement that increase oxidative stress due to production of excessive amount of free radicals and chronic inflammation are the major factor that initiate the development and progression of almost all human chronic diseases, from diabetes to Alzheimer to arthritis. Nobody will argue it because they are involved. And so we feel that in case of diabetes, these two culprits are involved, the major player which initiated. And then people knew about it. And so they said, okay, I will use antioxidant. Naturally, that's what logical conclusion, because antioxidants are known to reduce oxidative stress and inflammation, chronic inflammation, because sometimes acute inflammation is good for healing, but not chronic inflammation. And but unfortunately, their thinking was correct, but experimental design was not correct, because they're starting using a single antioxidant. And in single antioxidant like vitamin A alone or alpha lipoic acid, in some cases, they will give some benefit, but not very much. And so because of my experience in University of Colorado, I said, no. We use a multiple antioxidant. Why? Because body has a multiple antioxidant. Even within the cell, if you have just put one antioxidant, they are distributed differently. You have a lipid-soluble vitamin, you have a fat-soluble vitamin. So if you just give vitamin E in trial, which is the most commonly used, it is a lipid-soluble. It will protect all the lipid-soluble component of the cell. But 80% of the cell is water component. It can protect water component. So this kind of rationale went behind, and their mechanism are different. And therefore, I said, oh, no, I will use multiple vitamins. So in PMC, I developed this. And when I presented this to the Army, we have no clinical data or basic science data. We just had a theory. But now we know we have a lot of clinical data to support micronutrient. So this is the only agent, to my knowledge. So the question is how you can best increase, in this case, since we know increased oxidative stress and inflammation are the causative agent, how we can reduce them at the same time. See, there are some agents like aspirin. It can reduce inflammation, but nothing to do with the oxidative stress. And so she said we have to find out some agents which can do both at the same time. And then I said, well, micronutrient could be one of them. Multiple micronutrient could be one of them. But then how you select those micronutrients in your formulation? Then we have to know what we have to do to decrease the oxidative stress and in chronic inflammation, the most effective way at the same time. Then we found out, well, the body has also antioxidant enzymes. So we have to elevate them. Then we have also then antioxidant compounds. We have to include them both at the same time. And then we also have to have a B vitamin for general health and so on. And so then we decided, well, let us see what happens to micro. First, let us see how we can increase antioxidant enzyme first, because we knew how to increase the antioxidant compounds, vitamin A, C, E, and so on. But we didn't know how to increase. So I started studying about this and found out that in a cell, they have one is called a nuclear transcription factor, NRF2. So NRF2, I said, okay, I will study about NRF2. But turn out, NRF2 requires free radicals. ROS, reactive oxygen species, to activate it under normal condition. But then I said, well, antioxidant traps these things, that won't work. But then found out that the nerve 2 become very unresponsive to free radicals in a chronic disease state like Alzheimer or diabetes, that they don't respond anymore to free radicals or reactive oxygen species. They become resistant. Then how to activate them? Because their activation was absolutely essential for increasing the level of antioxidant enzymes. So we found out the certain antioxidant, there were 3-4, vitamin E, alpha lipoic acid, and I have written a few more. They can activate NERV2 in the absence of free radicals or in the absence of reactive oxygen species. And once, as you know, NERV2 get activated, they migrate from cytoplasm to nucleus when they combine the antioxidant response element and then transcribe all the genes for increasing the level of antioxidant enzyme. So I said, that's great. So I included those antioxidants in my formulation because I wanted to have increase increase the level of antioxidant and as well as the level of antioxidant, both what we take from the diet and what our body makes it, both types. And so this is the only product which has both components that can do it. There are some marketplace. One company is Protendum that has a herbal formula, but they can activate only NERV2. That's not sufficient. It has some effect, but not the optimal effect. And for optimal effect, you have to do both. Increase NERV2, activate NERV2, as well as increase the level of antioxidant compounds, some of which so our formula that we have micronutrients are based on these kind of principles. And there is a lot of data now from consumers because we predicted that it will prevent the incidence as well as it will improve in the management of diabetes. Because at this moment, we use a lot of medication, but those medications are simply either improve the glucose, decrease the glucose level, or improve the function of pancreas or insulin, the production of insulin. And so, but none of them address the issue of oxidative stress and inflammation. And therefore, they gradually continued, slowed down, and people have good quality life for a longer time, but eventually they ended up in a bad situation.
So, Dr. Prasad, let's talk about also how it's different that you were so ahead of the times when you did a 2-a-day dose, and most vitamins still don't do that.
No.
And he studied the microRNA expression, and because they have different half-lives, the fat soluble and water soluble vitamins, so he started the 2-a-day dose before anybody even was talking about circadian rhythms or getting your nutrients in the whole day. Like, he is the pioneer. So we have a 2-day dose so that we make sure we have the nutrients throughout the day. You don't want to take just one big amount because you could express it, but then it can cause other expression issues. And you taught that to me, right?
Yeah. This was then when we were there, and we did actually experiment that shows that just first micronutrient, when you take orally, it is absorbed and goes into your bloodstream, and then they start decaying. And the rate of decay or the rate of loss of micronutrient depends upon their solubility in the water or lipid. And it turns out that 50% of them are reduced in your bloodstream by evening, and another 50%. So your blood sees a lot of fluctuation in the level or concentration of vitamin in your body. What we showed it, with giving one example of vitamin E succinate, that when you, in the laboratory experiment, when you differ that in a less than twofold, then you see a remarkable difference up and down of gene expression. So if you fluctuate that kind of concentration, your cell will try to adjust it by altering the gene expression, not only just one or two. I had a 12,000 genes in my studies and in the chips. And it was amazing that how many we could not count it, but you can see in the picture sometime I will show you that the remarkable changes. So, and as you know that if you taking every day for a long period of time, and these kind of increase in expression of genes is changing so much that one time it can do mistake and cause mutation. And mutation, as you know, many times mutation are not any significance, but sometimes mutation can be very harmful. And in order to avoid that potential possibility, I said it will be better to have a dose twice, half in the morning, half in the evening. And this way you will maintain relatively a steady level of micronutrients in your blood. And that's one of the reasons why some of these things are so effective. It is not what it is inside, but it is how we take it.
So we also, your work is really profound for all the people on the call, that a lot of people are on medication. And it's one of the things that, Dr. Russell Court, in his clinic, it's just a lot of people are on medications, and he used to x-ray. And so he never had to worry because he would always provide your product prior to x-raying someone's head or their body. Yeah. And it's really, that's, no matter what medication they're on, there's no medication contraindications. In Dr. Prasad's work, there's not a lot of products out there that have the efficacy, and the evidence-based research on that.
Yeah, I think, and in case of diabetes, that's very true what you said. But even in case of diabetes, these vitamins do not interact in adverse manner. And I read all those medications that are given to diabetic patients. And if anything, if micronutrients start decreasing your glucose level and whether as A1C level, and then doctor will start reducing the dose of the recommended that they are recommending for maintaining the glucose level lower and lower. And we have many consumers saying that initially they had on 5 medications, and he and his wife was very established elderly gentleman and gentle lady, and so and they said that in 1 year the husband was totally off of all drugs and maintained glucose, and wife was on a small dose of insulin. And that kind of people, I had many, but I'm just remembered because at that time we used to go there and talk directly to the patient. Right. But since then, we on our Zoom call, many patients will report, and it is very interesting. The incidence of diabetes is dependent upon your ethnicity. Black and Hispanics have the highest level. Also, what the highest level is Native American, and as well as people in Alaska for some reason.
And islanders.
And Alaska.
And Pacific Islanders.
Pacific Islanders. And I don't know about Hawaii. Probably the, Sheila can tell us. But it is very high. I mean, it's high worldwide. Even in India, from where I come, many people, even at young age, they're getting diabetes. But in case of Indians, they said that there are some genes which allow the absorption of high level of cholesterol. And Indian eats a lot of cholesterol, rich, like butter, oil, had high fat diet. But anyway, so this is a major worldwide problem.
So Dr. Prasad, people are like, how can a vitamin do that? Okay, and I want to just take us to step back. This isn't just a vitamin. This is a multi-micronutrient that Dr. Prasad actually discovered that vitamin E, it's his discovery. Vitamin E succinase killed cancer. That is his published work. he also did major discoveries in butyric acid. So Dr. Prasad's work on the combination and the dose and the type of the nutrients in this formulation with 12.5 million to keep to reduce both oxidative stress and NRF2 to be able to act to do both of those is why we're here. But it's also what's not in it. So a lot of people in this call probably are in vitamins. What's not may be as important or more important than what is in it. So why did you take out some of the things you did? And so when people should go look at their vitamins after we're done, what are some things that should not be in your vitamin?
Yeah, first, the first question is vitamin E succinate. We have two forms of vitamin E acetate, which is everybody has it, and vitamin E succinate. Because the vitamin E acetate is absorbed and they get quickly converted to alpha tocopherol. The cell can use alpha tocopherol, which is the form vitamin E that body uses it. But vitamin E succinate is unique function. And vitamin E acetate cannot enter very effectively in the brain, vitamin E acetate. But vitamin E succinate, being more soluble, it is absorbed more rapidly and can enter the through blood-brain barrier in the brain. So this is one of the advantages. And as you said, in 1982, this was the first paper on cancer. Since then, if you go on PubMed or internet to look for vitamin E succinate, how many papers? There are more than 500 papers. And so it has implication in all kinds of diseases. So we combine both those things together. This is another unique thing in our place, in our formulation. And second thing that you mentioned, that the certain thing that we did not add is as important as what we have added to.
Yes.
For diabetes, for health, for any chronic diseases. And most of the commercial preparation that you will see will have iron. Nowadays, since I'm talking for the last 20 years, they remove iron in some cases. The iron, copper, and manganese. And it is well established, this is not my work, it has been known for 100 years, that iron and copper, when combined with molecule like vitamin C, it generates extensive amount of free radicals. And that is the agent you are trying to protect against. So, and increase in iron store in your body, iron has a binding protein, so to a certain extent it can tolerate consumption of iron. But once that protein is saturated, then free iron moves around in the blood, in your brain cell, every place, and cause neurological diseases, diabetes, many chronic diseases that iron, copper are involved in, Alzheimer, and so on. And so we said that there is no reason for giving iron. Even if you take a junk food like McDonald's, that will provide more iron. If you take one-time meat, that any kind of beef, any kind of meat, that can give you iron for the whole week or more. And because the body has no mechanism of removing iron from the body once you get in, once the iron, copper, manganese gets in. Mm-hmm. And so they accumulate. Anything you take, it accumulates it. And only time you can get rid of iron is if you give a blood donation to a cause, then you get rid of some iron. Otherwise, normally, there is no way. And the woman, after menopause, there is no mechanism. But during the menopause, they have mechanism. So it is more important in earlier, younger people not to take excess iron. And women after menopause don't take iron. So we decided we did not, even for example, in manganese, in South America, manganese minor have an increased incidence of Parkinson's disease. Mm-hmm. That is caused excessive accumulation of manganese. So I said, all these things are bad. Manganese, by the way, is also important, but there's a trace amount. These three minerals, iron, copper, and manganese, are called trace minerals. Trace means very, very tiny amount your body needs it. Without iron, you will be dead. Without manganese, without copper, you will be dead. but that is requirement is so tiny that you don't need in a supplement.
You don't need it in a daily basis. That would
That's
be,
right.
you have no mechanism, Sheila, this is so important.
No,
We have
no.
no mechanism of getting it out of our body, and it becomes toxic, and it's a real problem. And then for women over 50, 55, they have no mechanism, and that
No.
causes all other kinds of health issues, which could contribute to diabetes.
Yeah.
I am sitting here literally in shock as I'm writing this down, because all of you see supplements about iron, taking iron and taking
No.
copper, and I really thought that copper was is it okay to be taking copper without the iron, or do we just need to not be taking any of that stuff?
No copper, no manganese.
No
Because
copper.
some of the time they sell as a product, but they are very dangerous. Copper, actually, copper recently, 3 years ago, there was a paper published that excessive accumulation of copper can cause early onset of dementia. And so copper is not only dangerous for many other diseases, like I'm more concerned about dementia at my age, but in any case, I'm doing all right thus far.
So Dr. Prasad, how many years young are you? How many years young are you?
I am 87.
Okay, so he's 87, you guys, and
Yeah.
I research every day for hours upon hours. Okay, and I call him and I ask the hardest questions, and he's sharp as a tack. Look at him on here, like this is his life's work. Okay, and whatever he's taking, for everybody on this call, we all want to be taking that. Okay, I mean, this is the truth, because he's such a gem. But for those people, like if you're unsure, why don't you measure your fasting blood glucose in the morning? Measure. You have the power to do that now and take that back yourself and measure what you are in the morning. And I would just challenge anybody on this call. Okay, I would say 30 days, but I'd say a good 90 days, because all of our blood is brand new in 90 days. Okay. And one of the ways we measure is through hemoglobin A1C, which is really the glucose sticking to the hemoglobin, right? But in 30 days, if you took microdaily EMF twice a day within your window, and you measured your fasting blood glucose and you did that test, there is no doubt in my mind that you would lower that. And then the sinister sisters, right, of whether it's high cholesterol or high blood pressure or arthritis, will naturally be diminished. And no matter what medication you're on this call, if you're on any medication, or you're like going, I'm not sure if I'm pre-diabetic, measure. Yeah. I mean, this is something simple you can do to take back. And what happens is that once we start, like he said, once the body starts unable to recognize friend or foe, and these systems aren't working in the antioxidant defense system, that really is a cascade effect, And so this is a simple strategy that Dr. Prasad has, developed. And the thing is that the multi-micronutrients, for everybody on this call, there's lots of research out there that's all over the place. In his textbook, he talks about it. His passion is for people to understand it's not just vitamin C or vitamin E or glutathione or endogenously what our body makes. All of them in the right forms are needed to be able to do the work, efficiently. And that's what he's done. Simply, safely, and it's a twice a day dose.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing that I want to mention that Jeanette, you said it. Many products have also heavy metals like molybdenum, zirconium. These are heavy metals, and we have not in our product. We don't have it. And the reason we don't have it, because again, like trace minerals, once they get into your body, there is no way they can get out. These both heavy metal, and over long periods of time, higher accumulation can cause neurological damage. And therefore, why to take heavy metal? If you take a salad any kind of salad or anything which grow under the ground, they will have more than your body. Plus, your body don't need it, but at least it's not in a toxic level.
Right.
But you don't eat every day some product which grow under the ground. You eat salad, maybe a small amount, but if you take in a supplement, you take every day, and that's no good. So we have not. So that is very important to remember that. But here is another thing that I want to bring your attention. People ask question, how oxidative stress or free radicals is so important in diabetes. Here is why. Because in type 2 diabetes, you develop insulin resistance. So you have enough glucose, but glucose, or you have insulin production, but they can't go into this cell. Why? That's called insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. Well, once the glucose is in your blood, they need a protein which can transfer this protein to the site where insulin can work on the cell surface, insulin receptor. It can work. But oxidative stress, they damage the capacity of protein to transport the glucose to the site. And in some glucose escapes, some protein carrying glucose escapes this damage, then goes in the cell, but the receptor is also protein, insulin receptor. The oxidative disease has already damaged it, so it can activate it. So glucose, even in your body, it can enter into the cell, so your glucose level goes up. But these proteins are all the time produced, and they degrade. So if you have micronutrient, then it can prevent the damage caused by free radicals to this transporter. We call it a glucose transporter protein, which transports glucose to this cell, to the surface of this cell, for insulin to act. So now new product is coming up, and they're not being damaged because your body has high level of micronutrient. And same thing to receptor. Now receptor become very sensitive to insulin because they are no more damaged. Because once they are there, they are all renewed every few hours, in some case few days. And that's the reason why micronutrient works to reduce oxidative stress, to improve the glucose transportation to the cell and inside the cell, and then cell can use glucose, and then glucose comes down.
Even for like many years, right? I mean, like years and years, right? They could start taking the micronutrient at 50 and be able to get these benefits. And so Sheila's got a question, but I wanted to bring this, that how a lot of people are talking about that Alzheimer's, like Dr. Bredesen's protocol, it's the type 3 diabetes, right? And so Dr. Prasad already has a lot of work on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, like very well published. I mean, just put his name, Dr. Kedar Prasad, and Alzheimer's, and lots of papers come up. So can we talk about how the microdaily EMF twice a day can really help both diabetes and really that whole space of like transitioning to Alzheimer's? What is that? What is that?
Because again, it's same issues involved. For example, people have discovered during last decades various hypotheses for Alzheimer's disease. One of them is oxidative stress. One is inflammation. Then you have a production of high level of amyloid protein, beta amyloid protein, which they aggregate, they form a plaque. So that's one hypothesis. Then they also produce that, proteasome, this enzyme, which removes the dead protein from your cell, because protein is dying all the time. And this enzyme removes the cell. So oxidative, there's one is the inhibition of proteasome. So if you inhibit the proteasome, accumulation of bad protein occurs and cells start gradually losing function and dying. That's another hypothesis. Another hypothesis is that the hyperphosphorylation of another protein called tau protein. In other words, they get phosphorylation to become active and perform its job in a neuron. And so it is called hyperphosphorylation. Another theory is high cholesterol level in your body. So first people did not believe it. Then they said, well, let us do an experiment. So if you put on an animal model, fed them high cholesterol diet, they started producing a lot of beta amyloid and plaque. And if you put them back to the normal diet, then they don't. So that was good. There was no human study, but anyway. And so the question is, which is the most initiated, which occurs the first? So people have used, like most recently, there's an antibody developed by a company which has been approved by the FDA for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease, despite opposition by several scientists. And this purpose of this antibody is to remove the beta amyloid plaque. So he considered beta amyloid is the main culprit for causing Alzheimer or dementia. So if you remove them, you become okay. It didn't work. It didn't work. And it should not work. I would have predicted you are wasting your money. But anyway, and it costs $36,000 a dose. Weird. So, but but I don't know if they have approved it, but there is a lot of opposition. I don't know that they're selling it right now. But anyway, there are several drugs. But here is my view that I have proposed, a few years ago, that the initial event that initiate all these processes, even genetic one, is again increased oxidative stress. When you have increased oxidative stress, you cause damage to the nerve cell. In this case, cholinergic nerve cell, which stores your memory nerve cell. And so if it does it, then the question is that how you prevent it. Oxidative stress damage the cell. Then what happens? Your immune system says there is a damaged cell, I have to go and repair it. So they sent a anti-inflammatory cytokine to repair the damage. And if the damage is repaired many times, but if damage is not repaired, then chronic inflammation starts. And that started producing a pro-inflammatory cytokines, all kind of toxic chemicals. So you start with oxidative stress, that they are very closely linked. One cannot have without oxidative stress. Inflammation can be caused by infective agent, that is a different kind. But I'm talking the human chronic diseases like Alzheimer. Without oxidative stress, you cannot have a chronic inflammation. It has to. And in the beginning, when you suffer the damage, then they must get repaired by acute inflammation. They call it acute inflammation. That's one of the difference with acute inflammation, that produces also anti-inflammatory cytokines. But anyway, and then, so we proposed this idea, this is the first event. And then I started looking, what are the evidence? The first evidence we found that people who are carrying a familial genes of Alzheimer's disease and have not developed any symptom as yet. And if you measure in their blood, the level of marker of oxidative stress and inflammation, they're all elevated. So the question is, if you can reduce it, can you reduce or can you delay the onset of Alzheimer for a longer period of time? And then they said, well, what happens to amyloid? Because people are saying this is the main cause. Because people thought that beta amyloid is the main causes of the is the disease of Alzheimer. And says, no, it is the oxidative stress which increases the conversion of what is called amyloid precursor protein, or APP, to beta amyloid by enhancing the activity of the enzyme, which has started by increasing, so that now more and more beta amyloids are formed. But it is the oxidative stress who did it. So I said, yeah, that's good. That's one thing. What happens to proteasome inhibition? Sure enough, there is a data available that increase oxidative stress inhibit proteasome. That will allow all the accumulation, because cell can't get rid of any of the junk that cells are producing. And even in case of hyperphosphorylation, that they said that that it prevents hyperphosphorylation of top protein. Then one very prominent scientist reported that it was known that beta amyloid does cause neuronal death of the nerve cell, but they didn't know how it causes the death. So one of my friend who was working in San Diego, he said he put the vitamin E in the beta amyloid in nerve cell culture, it kills it. He put vitamin E, it prevented it. So he said, last step of beta amyloid, which was the cause of the disease for long time, until I have come up with a new hypothesis that even they require free radicals. So even though you're in a later stage of the disease, where you have missed all those boats, and then now you have a lot of beta amyloid protein and a lot of hyperphosphorylation of tau, and so all these things happening. Still, you can prevent the last stage in that by using a micronutrient. And all the drugs that we are using for Alzheimer, their main purpose is to increase the level of acetylcholine. And this is the molecule that is responsible for storing memory in a cholinergic nerve cell and recalling capacity. And so all the drugs are based on this. So the effectiveness of drugs lasts sometimes in 3 months, sometimes 6 months, because neurons are still dying. You have not taken any steps to reduce the death of the nerve cell. So if you combine the treatment, not antibody treatment that they have discovered recently, but medication, which has worked temporarily for some time, if you combine these things with micronutrient like ours, your effectiveness of the drug can last much more time, much longer time.
So, Dr. Go ahead, Sheila.
In April, it'll be 1 year that my mom died with Alzheimer's.
Oh.
And for me to hear this, my heart is singing at the same time as being very sad, because I wish I had known this a year ago, and I would have, more than a year ago, I wish I could have supported her along the way with that. However, what literally blows my mind is that you're telling me I could have it reset, just dormant, and by taking this, I'm protecting myself. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Of course. First, if your mom has died, say after 70, she doesn't have a genetic basis, and she has some acquired. It could be genetic, could be acquired. The people who have a genetic familial disease appear at the age of 45 and 50. So you are not carrying the genes of Alzheimer from your mother. But as you grow older, by virtue that you are getting old, brain is losing neuron all the time. So idea is how to prevent it so that when you grow older, you don't have the same problem like your mom has.
Okay, because not only did my mom pass from it, but her sister, who was 18 months younger, passed 4 months before my mom did from Alzheimer's. So my mom started really there.
How old she was when she died? When the first sign of Alzheimer appeared?
My mom was 80, I think 84, 85, right around in there. But the Alzheimer's started probably 5, 6 years before the dementia.
This is not a genetic. This is just acquired.
Okay.
After 80, I was telling Janet, after 80, more than 50% of the US population has dementia. Not well established, but full dementia. And so dementia could be occur with or without Alzheimer. For example, we have vascular dementia. If your cholesterol level is high, your carotid artery gets narrow, your blood supply gets poor. That can also cause dementia without Alzheimer.
And
so,
Dr. Prasad, you have a paper on the carotid that you did.
Yeah.
And with your counterpart there in Denver, with the firefighters, a long-term study. Or why don't you expand on that? Like, since you just mentioned that, there's a study that he did on the carotid artery, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about a solution.
Yeah, this study was done in collaboration with Dr. Jeffrey Boone, who is a cardiologist for Bronco. And as you know, that those players become high risk of developing all kind of disease, including heart disease, when they retire and they retire. So here, among firefighters, he did a study with our formulation among firefighters. And as you know, firefighters have a very high risk of heart disease. Not a chronic one, but just the but increased for whatever reasons, they have increased risk of heart disease. So he did a study for 1 year, and his criteria of measurement was lipid profile and the thickness of the artery of the thickness of the carotid artery. Because as you grow older, your artery becomes narrower and narrower, and if you don't, then it becomes blood gets slowly, and then can cause a stroke. And so, but and his control was the people who were taking statin drugs, like in his case, simvastatin, but could be Lipitor, it is the same as statin drug. So after 1 year, he measured 6 months and 1 year. And then after the 1 year, he showed that the lipid profile was as good as produced by Lipitor. So he has started calling micro daily. He used to do at that time different names, but it was micro daily formulation. That it is a poor man's Lipitor, because it is a cheap, and so. But what is surprising most, that I did not expect it. I didn't expect even lipid one, but lipid profile one. But what I was most prominent experiment was found out in experiment was that the thickness of carotid artery in the simvastatin or a statin group keep increasing normally, like you do in a normal aging process. And he measured by, in a X-ray machine, and so it was very interesting. But people who were taking just micro daily alone did not show any increase, zero increase within 1 year in thickness of micro daily. That was really amazing experiment, because in my mind, you can reduce some of the marker of any kind of disease, but modification of the tissue or tissue manipulation of the tissue, only micronutrient can do it. I was amazed with the result. No way. Still nobody would believe it. And I asked him to publish, but he's kind of busy doctor. I said, I can publish this information, but he has not been able to give me. He has given me all the data, but he has to allow me to publish it, because he will be a senior author. Because he did most of the study, I just provided the product, our old company.
So Sheila, I wanted to share, like with diabetes, that we're talking about an older population, and then we went to Alzheimer's, and how a lot of research out there is saying that Alzheimer's is a type 3 diabetes. But I want to talk about the other end of the spectrum, children. And Dr. Prasad is developing.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people are calling it, but I would have to differ with it, because I don't know how you define type 3 diabetes. Because in many cases, Alzheimer cases, they are not diabetic. They are non-diabetic. And therefore, the terminology of throwing type 3 diabetes, for example, some people are calling Alzheimer, just like you are saying it, as a prion disease. Prion disease, mad cow disease.
Mm-hmm.
So some people calling mad cow disease, we call it prion disease, as a second Alzheimer's disease. But
So
I
Dr.
don't think
Prasad,
because
I
changes are not the same.
We're hearing from the pioneer here, of multi-micronutrients, and there are people that have different hypotheses of what they're calling. You just walk through them. What would you call it?
Alzheimer, I will call Alzheimer.
Okay.
And if somebody has a diabetes plus Alzheimer, which are in some cases could happen, but I think Alzheimer, diabetes will take over earlier than Alzheimer will if it is not a genetic one. But beauty of this thing is our product is, since there are same events involved in both Alzheimer and diabetes, when you're taking micronutrient, it will reduce the risk of both. Because in both cases, same biological damage is involved, namely oxidative stress inflammation, except the tissue is different.
That's what that comment right there, Dr. Prasad, is what for me is so it brings me so much hope and light, because if we can wake up and start utilizing micronutrients to stave off this stuff, the population is going to be healthier to begin with, and we can live fuller lives. And
Exactly.
how exciting is that? I moved to Hawaii from Alaska to live a fuller life, not just to age gracefully. Okay. And I am totally thankful. And I just want to say we're at 5:06, and I know Jet was bringing up another question, but I want to be respectful of you and ask if we have time, because usually my show goes an hour, but do we have time to finish what Jet was bringing up, children and diabetes?
Yeah, children diabetes, that's type 1 diabetes. And there, of course, the main treatment is a insulin, and insulin injection, different way, pump, and so on and so forth. Actually, one of my niece had a same type 1. That's called type 1 diabetes. We don't have much experience with type 1 diabetes, but I think if anything, it will improve the quality of the life and may reduce the requirement of how much insulin, because the pancreas is damaged, and therefore they don't produce insulin. And so my fear is that you may have to continue, but not with a high dose of insulin. And so I would say that it's worthwhile trying it for 90 days for the children. And when you use children, then you can use it, what they call children's. We have for kids, I don't know how old your kids are. We have kids formula as well. And so you can use it and then see, if it's young kid, within 12 years of age, then she will like the taste and everything, and then see what happens. At least it will not harm you. Overall, health is also important, because type 1 diabetes, it also affects your psychic, because I have this disease in many cases, it affects your overall health, in the future. When you're growing up, it looks like you're normal kids and everything, but when you become older, then it could be a problem. But if you are taking this kind of micronutrient, maybe at least the quality of the life will improve, and you may not have. These are just I'm giving my personal opinion. It may not be like some people might say, "Oh, I have a bad diabetes," and so might affect your thinking. And this kind of behavior attitude might be improved.
So, Dr. Prasad, can we do to wrap up with prevention for all people, but prevention for children, getting these micronutrients in twice a day and starting this young as prevention for prediabetes and diabetes? How important is that for our children?
Children is also important. Good diet. Not only micronutrient is important, but best diet cannot provide the nutrients she needs, because sometimes insulin has certain side effects, long-term consumption. And actually a friend of mine from University of California in Orange County, they published a paper that insulin has certain drawback over long period of time. To prevent those kind of issue, it may be necessary to have a micronutrient, and of course diet is extremely important. Some exercise, make sure she does or he does exercise regularly is very, very important for even type 1 and type 2 both. So the current guideline, what is said, should be followed as closely as possible, but I always recommend to do good diet and have a exercise. Kids can do exercise. You don't have to worry about smoking, but type 2 diabetes people, they should stop smoking if they do, and have a positive attitude. Make sure kids and adults both, like you are placed in Maui, get relaxed on vacation, meditation, whatever she likes to do it, play games. Relaxation is extremely important for overall health. So guideline is that take micronutrient plus good diet, good lifestyle can beat everything.
And lastly, also real quick, sleep. If they're snoring, if your child's snoring, they could be suffocating.
Yes. Sound sleep, especially for the adult. I'm sure children sleep sound, but looks like in some cases micronutrient has helped. And for adult, I always recommend that if micronutrient by itself doesn't help, take some CBD for adults, not for children.
Dr. Prasad, I carry the children's micro daily EMF around in my purse, gummies, and I work at an artisan festival. I create crystal dragons and eggs, and during the day when I am out there in the 80-degree weather and I'm flagging because my mind is, I'm talking to hundreds of people, I will pop the gummies. Yeah. It is wonderful because I literally, again, have that just energized my body and my brain within minutes. And my kids are grown adults. I'm 58. I have 7 grandkids and 1 great grandson. So they all live in Alaska, though. And but I send them the products, and they've tried them out. So
because when you chew the kids formula, it is absorbed quickly, and the capsule gets the stomach, it gets resolved. Capsule has a slow process, but kids formula is very, very effective.
Yeah, well, I love them.
It is not replacing the adult formula, but if you have kid formulator, when you need to take short break.
That's exactly what I do. It's just like my emergency, it's my emergency kit, and I grab that out, and it's a wonderful thing. It truly is. And I plan to put the link after we finish this. I'll go back into Facebook and I will actually put the links where the guests, the people that are watching, can go and order the Micro Daily EMF for adults and children and take a look at all of the amazing products that Dr. Prasad has created. I'm really grateful. Jet, do you have anything else to ask or add or say?
No, I think nothing to add. I'm coming in Maui. That's our favorite vacation place. Every year we go with our family for 10 days or 7 days. My son decides all these issues. And so with my granddaughter and whole family, I will come between April 3rd. This is tentative plan between April 3rd and April 10th. We will be there. So
I'm looking forward to welcoming you, meeting you in person. I know that Jet and Dr. Court are planning to come stay at my house. So this is super, super exciting for me. And I, when you come, I'm hoping to have a place where maybe you'd be willing to give us a short talk like this again.
Sure. As a professor, this is my job.
Well, what an amazing job you have of, your story was an inspiration to me the first time I heard Dr. Court speak about you. And to have the goal of helping to humanity heal itself through nutrition, what an amazing thing. But not just nutrition, the micronutrients, those things that we don't get anymore in our food. And so I am really grateful to have you here and Jet. And as we wind this up, Jet, do you have anything left to say today?
I just have. I was going to plug the Maui thing, but now that he did that, he got ahead of me. I just wanted to know, for everybody on the call, just to give this a try for 90 days. It can change your whole life and measure. You know what I mean? Take that back. You can be able to measure that in the morning. And whatever Dr. Prasad, how long have you been taking this formula? Let's just.
Since I discovered it, and since, these various kind of formulation that I developed, I've taken for a long time.
Like 30 years?
20 years, I would say.
Okay.
And this is very important that various form, I started with the scientific nutrition to Premier Micronutrient Corporation, now to Engage Global. So I have been taking for a long time.
So you've been taking this formulation that you presented to walk the halls of Congress 17 times to get funding for our military and for this research. You've been taking this. I just want to say, anybody that's listening to this, we all want to have a brain as sharp as Dr. Prasad's, okay? And I research many hours of every day. And when I talk to him offline separately, I just want you to know he really truly is a pioneer and really living. There's no one that knows more about multi-micronutrients and optimal health than Dr. Prasad. And it really is, honestly, Dr. Prasad, one of the greatest honors of my life to get to be mentored and to learn from you. Even though not formally in medical school, I read your work all the time. And it really is, such a gift that you're helping all of us, from the children all the way through to people that are in their 70s or 80s. There's hope by putting a multi-micronutrient formulation in twice a day. It's not once a day. It was designed twice a day to work optimally.
Yeah.
Right? That's my last thing, but it really is one of my greatest honors of my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's so wonderful. And so the one last thing that I've got to say as well, we're all here together, is that, Jet, can you share about what's happening on the 22nd? And I'm thinking, wow, we're going to be doing that for 12 weeks. Isn't that what 90 days is?
What is 12 weeks? What is that 22nd? I don't know.
Dr. Prasad, I am teaching for free on our Dr. EMF telehealth platform. So we have our own HIPAA compliant platform for 12 weeks, 200-person capacity. We're going to be teaching for free each week. And I was going to ask you to come on and lecture one of the 12 weeks where we'll get to have Dr. Prasad live. Okay, and we'll be able to have a question and answers, because people love to ask him, but it will be in our HIPAA compliant platform. And we're going to
the subject, the name of it, Jed, is
Reset Your Circadian Code with Dr. EMF. And
there are you have to send me email.
I will. There are 3 keys, right, to healing, because that's our work is really the healing cycle, Dr. Prasad. Nutrients, your life's work, right? Your life's work. And then wakeful activities, which is a lot of Dr. Court's amazing neurological work. You've been to his clinic. You got to see that. And then lastly, restorative sleep. And we have to have those 3 things to heal. And that's what we're going to be covering in the 12 weeks. But if you would be, Dr. Prasad, we would love to have you on in our Dr. EMF HIPAA compliant platform that we'll be able to ask you questions and that people will be able to, ask to their heart's desire, because I bet they're on here going, I want to ask about this, about my family.
Yeah, I will be there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. And
thank you. Thank you very much. So let me just get back down here to the last of wrapping it up. What an amazing experience this has been, everyone. For me, my brain has just woke up and reeling with all this new information, because there's so much that Dr. Prasad shared that we have not been told, or that we've been told something completely opposite. So I am grateful to each and every one of you that you chose to come and be here today with Jonette and Dr. Kedar Prasad with me. And also remember, if you're watching the replay, yay, we're grateful for you to watch the replay, okay? So I'm going to be having the information where you can link in to getting the Micro Daily EMF through Engage Global. I'm going to have a link for you to sign up to be one of the 200 people. I know that is already starting to, that at least 3 of the spots are taken. My little sister, me, and my husband are doing it. I'm hoping that you join us and that you will take up the challenge with us to reset your circadian code and get your body full of micronutrients, because you don't want diabetes and you don't want Alzheimer's, okay? I love you all. Ciao, meow. And don't forget tomorrow. Here we have our plug. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock Hawaii Standard Time. It is noon on Pacific Standard Time and 3 p.m. on the East Coast. Join me, as every Friday we do Freedom Fridays, and we tap away the crap with EFT, the Emotional Freedom Technique. I will see you here tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.